Hello again, it's Jackie Martin with A Matter of Motivation and Be More Learning here with another episode of Pop Up Positivity. I'm so excited to be with my friend Tim Hopkins. He's here to share just a little bit about his life and what he's doing. He's an associate broker for Keller Williams. And Tim and I know each other because of all the work we've been doing with Leadership for Sight and lots of other things here in the community. So I'm so glad you're here, Tim. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, excited. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Well, tell everybody a little bit more about you and about what you've been doing.
Okay. Not originally from Georgia. I grew up in New Jersey. I went to college in New York, Rochester, New York, and started in the IT field in Connecticut in the insurance business, Hartford area, which is the insurance capital. And after about 4 years, I had a chance to transfer to Atlanta and jumped at it. Remember my first trip here was I left the snow in Connecticut in March and came down here and it was 70 degrees and sunny and everybody was
Nice.
walking around at lunchtime, green grass. So I told them I was here to stay and eventually met my wife. So we've been married now for 23 years.
Get that right now, Tim. Come on.
I had to think that. We have one son who's 16, just started driving on his own, which, as you know, Jackie, has a new level of excitement around the house. And we go to Brownsbridge Church. My wife has a teaching background, and she is just now she's mostly stayed at home with our son, but she just now got accepted to be a parapro for special needs kids at the Chastity Elementary School. So,
Wow.
And I started my career in real estate in about 2001. Actually, my license date is that I joined Keller Williams was the original 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Easy to remember, yes. So we've been doing it for almost 20 years now.
Wow. So you've been doing real estate. That's all you've been doing here. Or mostly what you've been doing since you got to Atlanta. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in insurance. Well, I was in insurance for about 7 years, and then they transferred everybody back to Hartford, and I decided I wanted to stay here.
Good for you. Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't want to be back north again. No, no. No. So you obviously being with Keller Williams and selling real estate all this time, you have seen tons of changes in this sort of North Atlanta area, haven't you? What do you find to be the most dramatic sort of change over the last decade or so?
Probably just a pure number of people, right? Being in real estate, I started in Gwinnett County. I used to live in Lawrenceville and started my real estate career in the office in Duluth. And we had seen the growth in Gwinnett just the time we lived there it was crazy. And then so we decided we wanted to move to Cumming. And I told my broker in Gwinnett office that we're looking to move here, and there wasn't an office here yet. And then the person who started this office called her and said, we're starting an office in Forsyth County. Everybody would be a good team leader to help us launch the office. And so literally I told her a week before that I was moving here. So we came over and started the office in 2001 and just saw Forsyth County take off. And aside from a little dip in 2008, 9, and 10, we've seen it grow pretty steadily. So I say just a number of people, really.
Yeah. Well, okay. So today we're talking about positivity, really. Even though we're starting to move through some of our most recent circumstances, there's always a need. And times like that little dip you described a minute ago, what strategies do you use? I know an independent, you work for yourself essentially. You've got to find that sort of inner motivation. What is it that keeps you focused even when there's challenging times?
Yeah, those are definitely challenging times if you were in real estate. I'm a big reader, so I try to get a lot of positive input through books. One of your mentors, John Maxwell, of course, I read a lot of his stuff. Someone told me, so one of my mentors a while ago told me all we control is our actions and our attitudes. So attitude is determined for me a lot by what I put into my brain. So always trying to read positive books, leadership books, relationship books, because we all know the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our attitude. So I'm a big reader, and now these days, of course, you can watch videos on anything as well. So I'm putting more positive than negative into my mind every day, I would say.
Yeah, and you know that's a challenge sometimes, I know, because there's just a lot of negative stuff
Yeah,
out there. So
yeah.
if you were to tell me in your mind's eye, think about what books are sitting on your nightstand. What's one that you're working on right now? You got any good ones that are
You'll love this one. One of
what?
your favorite.
Oh yeah.
Make Today Count, which I think is a simpler version of Today Matters for the most part. And I'm reading I just finished a book by the guy who used to train Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant called Relentless. It was all about mental toughness. Um, and I usually have some casual, like Ogmandino parable type book going for the easier night's reading.
Yeah. Well, you know, so much of what we're putting into our brain then helps us fuel what we're uh, saying to others, but really what we're saying to ourselves. So I'm just curious, when you get into a challenging time, what's your self-talk usually like?
That's a good question. Usually starts negative, to be honest, and I've just developed triggers to catch myself. Um, Something I've started going back to recently is memorizing, for me, scripture, which is typically pretty positive. So I can do all things, right? I'm in control of my actions, my attitude. So I'm a big self-talk guy. So I'll just catch myself, because usually when I'm going negative, it's in my head, right? I'm not saying anything. So I'll try to start saying positive things, and that overrides, once we start saying something, our mind tends to line up with it, right? So I'm big on positive self-talk and just, lay out the situation. What's the worst thing that can happen? And if that happens, can I handle it? And so far, every time the answer has been yes. And as you know, usually the worst thing doesn't happen. So you come out ahead.
You know, I'm glad you shared that, because I think a lot of people think when we talk about positive, what goes on in self talk, that it all has to be positive, positive.
Yeah.
You know, the reality is most of the times we really just want to know what's the worst case and can I make it through it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really good that you do that. And then when did you discover I got to override this thing? I gotta I gotta come up with the right words.
That's a good question. Probably just through my reading habit over the years. I mean, I probably started reading on purpose, other than novels and things like that, like 2002. So I'd say I've been steady reading, 15, 20 minutes a day since then, for the most part. So probably back then, people pointed me towards books. If you don't know what books to start with, just ask someone. I was hanging out with some guys. Of course, you always want to, for good attitude, you want to associate with the right people, right? And so I was introduced to a couple guys who were both business owners, a little older than me, and hadn't started reading yet. And they both said, "Oh, you got to read." And the first book they recommended was the old classic Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I'm sure has been updated since then. And the other one they recommended, which is a much harder read, as you know, is Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. But both of them talk a lot about your attitude, and you're in control of it, and give you very practical tips on how to turn around when our natural negative self usually initiates. We
Yeah.
have to, we have to catch it and turn it around.
Isn't it true that, I mean, we say stuff to ourselves we would never say to anybody else?
Stupid.
Yeah, I know. And so it really does have to become intentional to stop ourselves.
Absolutely.
So even during all of this stuff that's been going on, I know you're leading and you're doing training and trying to keep people focused and motivated. During these challenging times, what have you been sort of doing or saying or sharing to other people to help them stay focused and positive?
One thing I've learned is to keep it real, right? Because some people are, I'm naturally optimistic, and I definitely recommend a behavioral assessment. I know you're familiar with DISC and the other ones. That definitely helps, because not everybody is naturally optimistic, right? So, but I found if I'm too optimistic, that turns people off, right? So I keep it real, and we know it's tough times are going on. We're all struggling. What can we do together to get through it, right? When things are bad, I'll just say, hey, we got a bad break on this. I'm in real estate. I love to tell you all transactions go smoothly, but they don't, because people are involved, right? People don't always do what they say. So I just learned to keep it real, and then going back to what can we do? What actions can we take to help us going forward? It is going to get better, right? I refer to recession a lot, especially people who are in real estate. Then, hey, we got through that. This so far from a real estate standpoint is nowhere close to how bad that was. So you can remind people of hard times we've been through before, and we got through them. And I limit, I don't watch the news much. I mean, people always say, well, how do you know what's going on? Well, when things get bad enough, trust me, people tell you. So I encourage others. They say, how do you stay so positive? I say, well, man, I don't watch the news with the social unrest we got going on right now. I'm probably one of the few people who hasn't seen the famous videos, that are out there. So I know it's bad, but I just try to keep it positive. Social media the same way, right? There's a lot of good to social media, but man, see people getting in those Twitter fights or Facebook fights. It's like, people, you realize everybody's watching.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say is, limit the negative.
Well, and what you were just saying about earlier with respect to being intentional by reading. I mean, it is, garbage in, garbage out. I mean, if we recognize we're affected by what we hear, and you also mentioned something about who you're around. Right. And so do you find, I mean, I would say because sales tends to attract a little more outgoing people, do you find that people in real estate tend to be more positive by nature or optimistic, or not necessarily?
No, definitely. With that disc profile we talked about, the eyes, the influential or extroverts, let's just call them. Yeah, I'd say like over half are definitely of that. So they are naturally optimistic. Other salespeople, you'll have the negative ones, of course. I say negative, but yes, let's say negative. So I'll avoid them. Sometimes you have to work with people, but my wife and I, we both learned, our circle of friends, we're going to spend time with people. We want to be uplifting them for sure, but we don't always want to be doing all the uplifting, right? We want to be receiving some positive comments and inputs from other people as well. So, but yeah, that sales in general draw up more positive people, but not always the clients, right? So you have to deal with. The unique thing about real estate is you have all these people have to work together, that no one has any authority over each other, right? The inspector, the appraiser, the lender, the closing attorney, the buyer, the seller, each agent. So you just have to learn to get along with people.
Yeah. Well, and that's where our friend John Maxwell talks about influence then. If you don't have an authority or a title, then tell me about how you use influence to help things move along.
Another Maxwell principle is that servant leadership, right? So I'll just typically offer to, I know this is not going well. What can I do to help your job be easier, right? And honestly, majority of the time it's nothing, right? But just offering sometimes gets people to smile. Go the extra mile, right? That's another leadership principle. So I'll do something I don't have to do if it's going to help the transaction go along. Not all agents are full-time agents, so sometimes I'll help the other agent do some stuff because they have to work or something. So just come from contribution is the way we like to say it in Keller Williams.
Nice. Well, I feel like earlier on you talked about relationship building and how you were reading books that helped, and how key relationships are. How key is that in real estate?
And if it's not the top, it's the top two for sure. It always helps to know the other agent. As a matter of fact, today I had a first meeting with a client. The house they really liked was under contract already, right? That happens. I knew the other agent, so I called him up right away. I said, hey, tell me about this. She goes, well, it turns out the buyer might be canceling the contract. So now we might be first in line to get this extremely competitive price point just because I had a healthy, positive relationship with the other agent, right? And I can tell you, like any profession, there's some agents, when you see them on a deal, you're excited. And there's some that, smaller percentage for sure, but when you see them, you're like, oh, this is going to be a lot more work. So positive relationships, networking. I know you're big on that in real estate. We're big on networking, again, because none of us have any authority over each other. So the better relationship you have, the more you want to help someone, right? That's just natural. So yeah, I'd say relationships is, I'd put it above knowledge of the contracts, really.
Oh, yeah.
Someone else. you have a broker that can teach you to contract, right? So when you have questions, you have someone to go to, but someone really can't build relationships for you, right? That's something we have to do ourselves, 100%. So I'd say, yeah, it's top of the list.
Yeah, because obviously, even especially for the client, this is the biggest purchase they're likely to make in their whole life, and they need to feel in a relationship that they know they can trust you and get to know you.
Yeah, and a lot of business and real estate, certainly, let's say 90% of mine comes from referrals from past clients and or just sphere of influence, right? People I stay in touch with on purpose, give value to on purpose. So yeah, they won't refer someone to you if they don't trust you. So yeah, it's a funny business. I just got a text from someone that's under contract, supposed to close next week, but it took us like 4 months to find them a house, right? And then once you find a house and you get going, there's less contact. And he texted me yesterday. He's like, dude, we talked like every day for 4 months. I miss you. We haven't spoken 3 days. So there's you've got to be able to build relationships quickly and then maintain them afterwards. Yeah.
I'm sure there are people you miss after the transaction's done or the deal is done and they're in their home beautifully. Don't you sometimes go, oh, I kind of miss them?
Absolutely. And so that's, again, being on purpose. What I'll do is a couple times a year, just have a client party, with Marie's Italian Deli, which is close by. We did that last year. We just had a wine and cheese night, invited all my clients out. And it was great. Some I hadn't seen in 2 years. I've spoken to most of them. I hadn't seen them. People are busy with kids' sports and work and all that. So yeah, so I'm on purpose about getting in front of people. I have a Christmas party every year where I give all my past clients like a free pie, whatever they want, apple, pumpkin, or something. So yeah, you do miss them, and it's fun, and they do appreciate it. Even the ones that go rocky, usually everybody remembers the good parts afterwards. Thank God.
Yeah, right. Once they're in their home, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you just said, made me think of the work we're doing together with students with Leadership Forsyth. And so with the 16-year-old, tell me about the kind of advice you give your child or that you would give a young person with respect to staying positive or focused or optimistic.
Yeah, my son says I'm too positive. So I don't know if he takes my advice, but that's kind of the story sometimes, right? That's why it's good for kids to have mentors outside the home, so to speak. I would start with that behavioral assessment. I mean, I wish I had taken one when I was 16 to learn. And the beauty of those, as you know, is not so much to justify our own behavior, but to adjust our behavior so we can be in better relationship with other people, right? My wife's the opposite of me on the behavioral assessment. So if I'm not aware of them, it causes tension and friction, right? We've seen that. And a lot of times couples attract, right? Opposites attract in couples. So if you don't know that, it could cause friction. So I would start with that. And then I would go back to the, what are you putting in your ear? I call it your ear gate and your eye gate, right? What are you putting in there? It's got to be positive. It's got to be more positive than negative, for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds simple, right? But it's
true.
You got to be on purpose about it, though.
Yeah. Well, so is your son a reader? Have you gotten him started reading?
No. He reads a little, but not as much as I'd like so far. We've talked about different incentives, and now I've got where he'll read things he likes, which is, while we're on it, there's a million books out there. So if you do pick one up and you don't like it, put it down, right? Yeah. If it's work, other than if you have to do it for school or something, right? But if you're doing it for yourself, if it's work, put it down. Because I've had books that people have raved about. Jackie, after 5 minutes, I was like, I just don't get this guy, right? So I'll just put it down and move on. So he's not, but he's getting there now, because now he's starting to find some interest that he really likes. And so now we're getting there. Yeah. He just took him a while to find something he really wanted to read about, especially while you're still in school.
It is hard. It is hard when they have to read because of school, and who wants to have to when you're, trying to enjoy yourself. Well, so obviously there's lots of changes and things going on right now. And, but one thing I'm noticing is I'm watching young people become energetic and mobilized around things. And I'm drawing encouragement from that. I mean, regardless of your take on where and what, it doesn't, when you see young people start to, especially since maybe over the past couple of years, we've not been looking very favorably at how they're spending time. But now, what do you think of all that?
Yeah, I admire it. I was not, whatever you want to call it, socially active or active in social issues. Let's say, obviously, I was out being social, but not an activist of any sort. Just still selfish, right? Probably well into my 20s. So to see young people, catching on to a cause that they believe in, right? And even if I don't believe on their side, I appreciate and respect anybody who's passionate about a cause. And someone told me you can tell how people feel based on how they invest their time and their treasure, right? Their time and their money. So if they're taking their time and attending, rallies, and for sure, if they're investing money in things, when I know most of them, it's hard to come by, right? For younger people.
Right.
I got nothing but respect for it.
Yeah.
As long as they educate themselves on it, right?
Right.
Don't just believe everything we see on Facebook, right?
Go find out. Go find
out for yourself. Go talk to somebody. Yeah. So I love it.
Well, so what would you tell your 16-year-old if you, looking back, had an opportunity to talk to the 16-year-old Tim? What would you tell him?
It's a good question. I think the one thing I would tell him is learn more, or will tell him, learn more for learning's sake. I got good grades in school only because I was a good test taker, right? So as soon as the teacher said, this won't be on the test, but let me tell you something, boom, my mind turned off. So I would definitely say, you got to, do as well as you can on the grades. Let's be honest, once you're out of school for a certain number of years, the grades aren't as important, right? So do your best on that, but just try to learn stuff, get outside your comfort zone more, which I still try to challenge myself right on a regular, which the good thing about COVID is it got us all out of our comfort zone, right?
Yes.
Extended period of time. So that's what I tell them, man, just learn for learning's sake, get outside your comfort zone. Is, one guy I used to listen to, he said, you kill the comfort zone daily. That's just was his self-talk, like we talked about. And so he would be really on purpose, whether it was just meeting a stranger or picking up a new habit. It might just be driving a new way to work. Right? I mean, just break the habits to get out of comfort zone.
I love that. And I think that's so important. And so I have one more question for you. And I've been asking everyone this because a friend of mine used this when I might have been complaining about something new. I can't even remember how it all started. But she said,
you weren't complaining, Jack.
I know. But she said, yeah, but what if it's better? And so I actually even had this made. Nice. And it's backwards, but it says, what if it's better? So when you just hear that, I mean, to me, it's sort of her philosophy. But what comes up for you when you hear that question? What if it's better?
I love it. I'm going to have to write that down and put that somewhere because that's not our natural thought, right? I think the one thing we can all agree on is most people don't like change, like we just talked about our comfort zone. But what if it's better? What if you lost your job, but what if the next job you get is more your true calling and you find something you're passionate about? Now you're making more money and you feel like you're not even working, right? That'd definitely be what if it's a better scenario, right? Or your relationship breaks up that you thought was the one. What if it's better? What if God has someone else for you that, this had to happen for you to meet that person? Again, that's a little easier for me because I got that natural optimism in my behavior profile, but I love that. I've never heard that worded that way.
Well, use it all you like.
I'm going to use that. You better trademark. She better trademark.
Okay. I love it.
Moneymaker right there.
I think it's a great idea just to use it as always asking ourselves. And yes, of course, sometimes the realist in all of us needs to make sure the worst case scenario is taken care of. We don't, but what if we actually use that question all the time, even in challenging times? I guess that's sort of the goal of even these conversations, is to try to tap into that.
Matter of fact, tell you what I'm going to do. Tomorrow, our office is doing Facebook Live on Monday and Fridays because about half the people still aren't comfortable coming in. So I host a Friday one. So tomorrow, that's going to be my topic. What if it's better?
Excellent. Excellent.
I'm going to
You
use.
go. I think that's great. I'll see if I can find another one of these stones. My cousin actually made them and she's an artist and she has hidden them all around Peachtree City where she lives. Different
Nice.
inspirational rocks. They have all different sayings on them. And we've been giving them to the people who've been sponsoring Be More. So we just want to keep people
Love that
encouraged.
idea. So she just put them out on her, she paid, bid it herself and just put them out just so people be encouraged when
And
they come.
I got a group of them she did for us with Be More. She could do them for Keller Williams too, but it's just sometimes you need a little
Yeah.
reminder.
Tangible reminder.
Exactly. Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of tangible reminders, would you share how people who may be looking for a home or know somebody who is would want to reach you? How would they do that?
The website's hopkinshomesales.com. So that's probably the best way to go. On Facebook, obviously, you can, I kind of branded the Tim Hopkins instead of doing like Tim Hopkins 123, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Got it.
if you Google the Tim Hopkins Realtor, that would probably bring it up too.
Okay.
There's like not only about, a couple thousand Tim Hopkins, but there's like 10 of them that are realtors. So it's hard to do, but yeah, those are two best ways probably.
And you're right here in the Cumming office, correct?
Right here in the Cumming office.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Tim, this has been great. Thanks for giving us the time and sharing your positive focus and great ideas. I appreciate talking to you.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. We'll see you with
Thank
the youth very soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
Take care. And thank you so much for being here for another episode of Pop Up Positivity. We appreciate you. Have a great day.